Thanks, Minister, and good morning all. As the Minister mentioned, it's a good news story this morning in terms of what we've seen in terms of rainfall over the past 6 hours. But if we back up a little bit and look at what we've seen over the past 48 hours, then certainly rainfall in that 200 to 300 millimetre range has caused a lot of inflow into our rivers, and already saturated soils haven't helped that situation. But over the past 6 hours, overnight, last night, those falls have really dropped away. So we've only seen 10 to 20 millimetres over that time frame. So that easing trend is good news, and it will continue as we move through today. So we're expecting through Saturday another 10 to 20 millimetres over the southeastern parts of Queensland. We could see some very isolated falls above that in that sort of 20 to 40 millimetre range, but they will not be widespread and just very localised areas. So with that easing rainfall, we are carefully looking at the river situations and monitoring those. So whilst that is good news, we still have major flooding across multiple river systems across the southeast and through the interior of Queensland. So we plead with people to keep up to date with those warnings across the southeast Queensland rivers. There is also the risk of dangerous surf and coastal erosion because of those strong easterly winds and very large swells moving onto the east coast of Australia. Now, if I just take a moment to go through some of the river information. So we have a major flood warning current for the Condamine River. The river has peaked above Mage at Warwick around 3 p.m. yesterday on Friday, and is currently falling and is likely to fall below the moderate level this morning. On the Logan River, we have a major flood warning. Bow Desert has peaked above Major last night and has recently eased below the moderate flood level. We have major flood warnings current for the Worrell and Bremer rivers. Ipswich is currently just above 10 metres. Sorry, is around the flood and is at the flood peak, and is likely to remain above the moderate flood level at 9 metres this morning, but it is easing. Major flooding is also major flood warnings are also current for the Laidley and Lockyer creeks, but we also have an easing trend in those areas. We have moderate flooding warning in place for the Mary River. So Gympie, the water is currently rising, expecting to see moderate flooding there, and that will remain above that moderate flood level during Saturday and into Sunday, with the peak expected late today, so late on Saturday afternoon into this evening there at Gympie. We also have minor flood warnings current for the Brisbane River. We saw levels just reach the minor level on the high tides at around 7 to 8 a.m. Over the past 24 hours, and we're expecting that to continue through Saturday and into Sunday, possibly into Monday as well, on the peak levels of the tide. So that is a bit of a wrap-up of the warnings. There are further minor and moderate flood warnings across Queensland, but the key messages are the easing trend in the rain. Stay up to date with the warnings across those rivers, because there is a very complex situation still going on with the flooding in those rivers. And that rain is expected to continue easing as we move through the week. So we're not expecting any increase in the rainfall as we move through after the weekend and into the middle part of the coming week. So good news there. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning. As indicated by the Minister, the Queensland Disaster Management System is still activated and still engaged right across multiple parts of the state. And if I could just give an update in line with the information provided by the Bureau in relation to a couple of those places. So if I start at Warwick, the Condamine River, as indicated, has peaked and is dropping. We still have 87 buildings affected in Warwick. The Condamine is still causing flood issues there. We have 49 people in a local place of shelter at the Condamine. Now, the District Disaster Group and the local disaster group are meeting today, and as the river drops further, they'll be moving in towards those recovery efforts there. At Gympie, as indicated, we are still seeing rises in the Mary River at Gympie. Planning's well underway there, and the predicted of a moderate flood level in Gympie. It is expected that the town bridge may divide the town again to the south. We've pre-positioned our emergency services and our disaster management capability to both sides of the town. We are expecting some minor impacts to businesses in the CBD, but we're not expecting, with the predicted peaks, any significant impacts, particularly to dwellings in the Gympie area. But obviously the disaster management group there will continue to monitor that and will keep the residents informed. I really ask the residents of Gympie to stay really connected with the alerts today and with the information today and into tomorrow. Lockyer Valley, we saw water through the CBD of Laidley yesterday, and I'm advised this morning that that is starting to drop, and we're hoping with the rain that's predicted today that we'll have access into the Laidley CBD by this afternoon. Right across Grantham and the Lockyer Valley area, we are seeing those creeks stabilising this morning, and hopefully we'll see them drop today. We still have 2 persons in place of shelter at the Laidley High School there. I can say that as we do get access into these areas, that the disaster management system is well and truly connected with local government. We've already been connected this morning with the ADF, and we'll provide the necessary support into these areas as the floodwaters drop today. Can I just reinforce the messaging from the Minister in that that while we're seeing the rain easing today, we still have a number of creeks that are flowing. We still have a number of rivers that are flowing. As people are driving around today, it is highly likely that you'll still see road closures. Please don't enter those roads. I know the weather's improving today, but it allows the emergency services to focus on those areas that we need to focus on around Warwick, Lockyer Valley and Gympie. And we just ask people in other areas to please take care when they're out and about today. Thank you.
Thanks. Andrew Short, Queensland Fire and Emergency Services. Very important, even though the rain is coming to an end, the opportunities for people to get into trouble and water remains with us. It's a weekend, so we're going to see that kids are going to probably want to get in the water. We ask for parents and families to be very mindful of that whilst we move through that. We're going to see SCS volunteers and swiftwater operators still out there for the next 2-3 days, if not longer, whilst the water goes through the actual river systems. Incredibly important to keep listening to the messaging that's coming out. If people have got any questions or want help, they should ring 000 if it's an emergency, 132 500 or the emergency or the SCS app if they want some help. So you know, our team will be there right through to the end of this. And we look forward to you know, Queensland communities being able to get back to some sort of normality. Thank you.
Any questions of anyone?
Any rescues overnight?
In the last operational period, we've had 14 what we call a swiftwater incident. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're a full-on rescue. It could be our crew who's arrived and just walked in to actually walk a person out without any great you know, concerns. But certainly there's still people going in the water, you know, so we're looking for people to do the right thing. And as I said, it's a weekend, you know, the kids probably want to get out there in the parks with boogie boards or whatever. We ask for families and particular parents to be very mindful of that.
Question for Matt. Just in terms of the risk that seems to be easing and the rainfall that's going to ease off next week, when will we start to see, you know, the risk of, you know, seeing as catchments already full, when are we going to see those flood levels actually decrease?
Well, the rivers over the southeast tend to react more quickly, so those rivers will, you know, sort of days. But over the inland rivers, those will take days and weeks to move all the way down through the interior of Queensland and into New South Wales as well. So every river is different in terms of how it will continue to sort of fall and ease through those sort of major and moderate peaks. So I can't give you an exact number for every river, but certainly stay up to date with, and the forecast will track that easing trend, and you'll be able to see how that's changing for your area.
And is there, further risk, like seeing as we have a long-winded event that seems to be, you know, wreaking havoc continuously, is that going to persist into the next few months, or?
Certainly the winter outlook has increased chance of above average rainfall for Queensland. So we will have to really carefully monitor this. This is a very unusual situation. Some of the rainfall figures we've seen are sort of, you know, 5 times the May average, and certainly we've seen records fall as well. So it would be unlikely we would get another event of this magnitude, but we are going to watch it extremely closely because of that higher than normal chance of rainfall, average rainfall.
Question for Shane. Is it just the CBDs in Laidley and Gympie that are under threat, or have any homes have been evacuated as well?
In the Laidley area, there are some homes, you know, very close by to the CBD that have been affected. And we did, as a precaution, ask people to leave those homes, and they've come back in. What we're dealing with really across the Lockyer Valley area is more an isolation issue where, you know, we've got houses outside of the CBD, we've got water through the catchments, and you know, roads and access points to those houses have caused issues. Up in Gympie, it really is the CBD. The Mary goes through there. We don't really see any significant impacts to residents in Gympie until around the 17 metre mark, and we're predicting around the 15.9.
Do you think more people will need to be evacuated later on in the day?
We'll most definitely keep an eye on that. Like, you know, as the Bureau said, this is a unique situation. You know, we are expecting rain still of 15, 20 millimetres today, but if we were to get isolated downfalls, you know, the ground is so wet, those catchments, those creeks can rise and fall as necessary, and that's why we'll take those precautions. But look, I'm really pleased with the easing weather situation, and I think we're probably moving to a good space in those locations.
Is there any reports of any homes or businesses being inundated in like the low-lying areas of Brisbane, Logan and Ipswich?
No, it's something that we really do need to keep an eye on, but we did see that yesterday as we saw the creeks rise around Brisbane, and we did see, you know, properties that are living right on the edges of creeks and businesses on the edges of creeks will obviously be affected. What we're not seeing that flooding caused by the river systems. We were seeing that yesterday through those catchments and creek areas, and today with the rain easing, that risk will definitely reduce. We'll see those catchments go down, but you know, as I said, you know, we're not seeing the impact from the river, but we've got to keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Just to confirm, Shane, what areas the houses in Lakeley have to be evacuated as a precaution?
Sorry, that would have been directly around the CBD.
The CBD,
Yeah, thank you.
Minister, just quickly, obviously there's a lot of concern out there at the moment for people in particularly the southeast corner that have been impacted previously earlier this year by that flooding. So that's still fresh in the back of their mind. What's being done to reassure them that their properties may not be affected this time, etc.?
Yeah. Well, we spoke about it yesterday. You know, there is a lot of anxiety in communities right across the southeast, particularly communities that have been impacted by flooding only a few months ago. And I think the reassurance that all of those communities can have is that our previous response only a couple of months ago was swift, and it was also comprehensive. You know, it wasn't just about the emergency response, it was about the response about helping people rebuild. It was the financial support that went along with people who were impacted. So those people who are being impacted again, and you know, the experience we're seeing at the moment is that those numbers are relatively low. But for those people who are impacted, know that, you know, the government and support organisations will be there to support you.
And on Magic Round last night, there's a bit of controversy, that brawl in the stands in front of families and children, etc. What did you make of that?
Oh, disgraceful behaviour. You know, these are enjoyable family events, and people should go with a sense of responsibility around ensuring that those events are enjoyable family events. So I hope those people are not just you know, dealt with by the legal authorities through the police and the courts, but I hope that they're banned for life from the stadium.
Sorry, Shane, you mentioned 87 buildings were affected by the condo mine. Was that in lately, and what's the building?
No, the condo mine's at Warwick. That was the issues there, and we saw that yesterday where the condo mine broke its banks, and we have those buildings, and that'll be different level of effect. It doesn't mean they were fully inundated. A lot of those businesses along the condo mine and unfortunately are used to this, and you know, they lift all their stuff up and move out, come back and clean out. So it's 87 in total to various levels of impact.
Sorry. Have you spoken to Gympie Mayor Glenn Harvey yet? Has he given any indication how the community's feeling there? Obviously they had a really rough year already.
Yeah, the Deputy Premier was engaged with the mayors yesterday. I haven't personally spoken with the Mayor, but I know that the Deputy Premier reached out to all of the mayors, and the mayors know that there's networks for them to get in contact with us, but certainly at a local level, that's where our mayors really shine. You know, they're the leaders of their community. They're engaged with senior police and senior emergency services and disaster management personnel. And if they need additional assistance, they know the process there, but certainly they're very good at dealing with the local response.
Just in regards to schools next week, do you have any news on when we might get an update on closures and things like that, or are they all looking
Yeah. Shane, do you know about schools? Yeah.
Minister, we'll monitor
No.
that during the weekend.
Yeah, I think it'll just depend on, you know, what the impact has been of possible water inundation at any particular schools. But I imagine that if there's been no water inundation, those schools will be open.
So back to that magic round.
Yep.
So, do you think it takes away from our chances of holding that event in the future? That controversy surrounding it, particularly on the first opening night?
Oh, I don't think so. This was a couple of yahoos who are engaging in disgraceful behaviour. They'll be dealt with by the authorities, and like I said, I hope they get a life ban from the stadium.
It is though the second time we've had some blows in a few weeks. We've seen that consecutive fights in the football. Is that poor reflection on Queenslanders?
Oh, it's a poor reflection on those individuals. You know, Queenslanders love their sport. They engage in spectating in sport in a responsible, family-friendly way. You know, there's a couple of idiots out there who have done the wrong thing, and they'll be dealt with.
There's been a bit of criticism online about the police and security response, saying it's dragged on for, dragged on for a few minutes. Is there any word back that you're getting on that?
Oh, you know, other than to commend the police and security for their engagement with the matter, because, you know, I know people will have all sorts of assessments and commentary about how fast things should happen, but anyone who's seen that footage can see that, you know, there are people engaged in pretty vicious behaviour. Police and security have to respond in a responsible way so that they minimise the risk of harm to themselves as well as harm to others. All I can ever do is commend the police and the security for the outstanding work that they do. And obviously there's a lot of video footage that'll be analysed, and there were a number of arrests that were made as well. Okay. Thanks.
Oh, there you go.
I took it down before we thanked.